Live.
Hey, everybody. Good to see you. Good to be back. By the way, Greg is back in town, COVID-free. And Aaron's back from all the places Aaron was, including, Aaron, I heard you headlined the conference in D.C. this week with EOIR and David.
I saw that. I signed up. I watched the whole thing virtually. I couldn't go in person because of the COVID. But
yeah, we got to meet with the agencies and talk about all the great things that are happening.
Yeah, all the great, how they're fixing everything. Did you ask if Tracy Short is still employed at EOIR, who hasn't been fired yet as the chief immigration judge?
I don't think that one was on the agenda.
A position he's still wholly unqualified for. So there it is. You're not allowed to say that because you're the chair, but I'm not, so I can say whatever I want. So we're simulcasting and YouTube and each of our Twitter accounts, by the way. So we're online anywhere. If anybody's our friend on Twitter, all three of us, it's all here. It's all here.
It's like
just keeps going.
up already.
All right. So we wanted to talk first about the EB5 lawsuit, the EB5 litigation we have going on. Now, we have 3 different EB5 cases. So we've got the EB5 adjudication case that's going on. We've got the consular processing case. And we have the adjustment of status case. Now, the first case, the EB5 adjudication of 526, that is being filed today, if I am not mistaken. Well, Lily would tell us for sure, but we're definitely getting filed today. And the other 2 should be filed either today or tomorrow.
Yeah,
and all those cases are going to be in. Why are we suing the government? Didn't Congress, Greg? Didn't Congress fix EB5s?
Well, we're that easy on there. No, they did. I mean, what they did was good on there. They extended the EB5 program. They made a lot of changes to it, which are debatable as far as whether they're good or not. But they didn't really do anything about the big problem a lot of people have had with that program, which is that they are just taking forever to adjudicate applications. And, there's no legitimate reason it should take 5 or 6 years to get one of these applications approved. So we are going to try and do something about that.
And there's also, of course, the consulates that have basically just not interviewed EB5s because they're still implementing the priorities program.
Yeah, I mean, even the non-regional center cases, they didn't adjudicate any of those cases in the last since last summer.
None.
So it's they tried to blame the fact that the program sort of expired on there, which was debatable, but they couldn't make that excuse for the regular EB5s, and even those are,
What I don't understand, Greg, there's a special office that's literally all they do is EB5 and 829. That it's in DC, right? That's literally what they do. So what did they do for the last year? What were they doing? I mean, they weren't adjudicating EADs, I can tell you that. So
they should have been, or they could have been queuing all these cases up so that as soon as Congress acted, they could approve them immediately. Which they didn't do that either. This
goes to the managerial incompetence of the agency. Yeah. Not literally, it's the most frustrating thing. And Erd Chadu was at the conference. The first session was Erd Chadu.
I live tweeted that whole.
You did, and I followed your live tweeting because I wasn't watching it. I was actually golfing, so I was not watching it. She didn't say anything. Come on.
One of the issues, they have a lot of problems. One of the problems, they do have a staffing problem. And that's one of the things that they seem to be focusing on. But she said something that's very refreshing, but I don't believe it on there, which is that they are kind of taking a look at every process that they're going through and trying to figure out, does this make sense the way we're doing it? Is there a more efficient way to do it that will produce better results? That's exactly what a company would be doing in private.
Six Sigma, baby. Let's Six Sigma.
Right, but do you believe that they're doing any of that?
Of course I don't believe that.
No, I don't.
The answer to both of your questions is yes and yes, by the way.
Well, we know they're not doing that because why? Because what is the one thing I always harp on with respect to EADs?
It's automatic. It should be automatic.
Why do we need why do EADs even exist in a lot of it? They should be an optional thing that if somebody needs a document that they can apply for it, but they should be able to do it just the receipt. That should be the employment document. That tells me alone the fact that they haven't gone that direction, that they're not serious.
No. Well, again, they have to justify what they do internally, and they love $410 times
Right.
5 million or whatever they whatever.
But she spent a lot of time talking about how desperate they still are financially.
You know, wait a second. Do you know what that is? That's the smallest violin in the world, and it's playing just for USCIS.
Well, they could collect the fees for those. I mean, it's like I'll save you. But collect the fees for the 765s and just make the receipt the evidence of the employment authorization, and don't do the rest of it, and you will make a ton of money.
Well, the outrage, of course, is they want to charge $2,500 premium processing fee for an EAD, which takes them 12 minutes. Which
at 2,500.
Okay, so it's a deal. It's only 1,500.
That's the deal. 30 days, $1,500.
30 days.
Yeah.
30 days. That's what's even crazier. 30 days. I mean, come on. But enough complaining about Urchadu. And you know, Greg, if tomorrow Biden says, you know, I'm going to fire Urchadu, would you, Greg, run the agency? Would you come in and do it?
No.
Aaron, would you hop in?
No one would listen to me.
No.
That's the problem, is that they don't want to. They're broken, and they don't know how they, and they're not willing to fire people.
Well, what you're saying, it's a management problem. It's not a director problem. It's a management problem. It's embedded, burrowed lifers who can't think outside the box that's in front of them.
Yeah.
And there's a massive Peter principle problem there as well. There is that. Don't mean to insult the managers, but it's true. So we have the EB5 litigation. We've kind of got off on a tangent, but I found the sessions as I watched Greg live tweet them, and as I watched EOIR, because we like you, Aaron, have a lot of immigration litigation cases, which apparently are mostly going to disappear over the course of the next 3 years. And of course, when Donald Trump comes back, there we go.
Don't speak it into existence.
I will tell you this: we are seeing a lot of asylum cases. A lot of asylum cases.
Can I mention one last thing before we move on?
Of course.
So one of the things that Jadu talked about and was discussed, and Ben actually brought it up in one of the questions, was e-filing at the agency, and that probably that's the big secret probably to how they could solve a lot of their issues, is if they take the human beings out of the process and allow the computers to do a lot of the honestly, most of the work on there. So this morning there was a big announcement regarding DACA. Applications are now going to be, you have the option. I don't think it's mandatory. You have the option of electronic.
You have the option. You always have the option.
For now, the goal is to make it mandatory, but for now, that will be an option. And I used to say, it's a terrible system, but it's as far as user friendliness, but it is apparently a much faster adjudication for the processes that are electronically filed. So that is something that I think immigration lawyers and others are going to have to take a serious look at, even though our case management systems don't integrate yet with it. But it's if it saves clients a lot of time, then it's probably worth a look. But that is coming. And it's a reminder that I believe I'm going to be on this panel at the IBA meeting in Miami about AI and immigration adjudication and trends around the world, where there are countries that are turning their processes over to the algorithms and letting them make the decisions on cases. And I am not so sure that's a bad thing.
Well, it certainly would be consistent, at least in the bigger picture.
Do you trust a computer that actually has the rules programmed into it to adjudicate versus an examiner who has virtually no understanding of the process they're adjudicating?
In some ways, it would be better for some cases, not for every case. Obviously, you're going to need humans involved, and
anyway, that's the tangent. We can get back to the subjects.
So but it's true, and the DACA is only for renewals, and because the renewals. There's no documents to file, right? You've got all your documents in. It should be literally take them a day to get back to you and say you're approved, because there's no what's your discretion? Yes,
getting the data entry, getting the human side of the data entry part of it is going to be a big help.
All right. The next thing we said we would talk about is the DV2022 litigation. Aaron, we had a conversation with government counsel, didn't we?
We did, and we wanted to make this go as quickly as possible. And last year in the DV 2021 litigation, we were able to have, there were most of the things we didn't agree on. But early on in the case, we did agree on one thing, and that's that the case should move fast and that they should produce an administrative record quickly to allow that. They weren't so amenable to that this time, were they, Chuck?
They were not.
Yeah.
And that's Aaron. That's because the Department of State's new policy on litigation, which we have learned about through other means, is motion to dismiss everything, which is bad faith in my opinion. But
yeah. So what does that mean for the litigation? Well, it means we think we need to seek a preliminary injunction now, and so we are going to start putting that together for DV 2022 plaintiffs. We will be reaching out if we need updated documents or declarations from you, which is a good possibility. We're going to spend some time reviewing what we have on file and really lock into hopefully getting something filed next week or the week after, because we need to get them moving.
We don't, at this point, we need to see what's going on. Now, if you're one of our plaintiffs, I know at least one, Aaron, has been approved for their the lottery case. Excellent. And I have been contacted by several others, as well as other DV individuals who have visas to come to the United States.
Why aren't they here?
If you got a visa,
get over.
Come on vacation for a couple months, and then maybe your mind changes about your adjustment. But don't ask me on September 15th, hey, I've got a visa. Should I come to the States now and file for adjustment? I don't want to hear from you on September 15th or August 15th. It's April. Now is the time to come on vacation and maybe later change your mind. It's not in August. All right. So that's where we are on that. But Aaron, here's my favorite. The EAD litigation. Oh my God. It's briefed, right? The whole thing's briefed. We tell us where we are.
We're at a little bit of a logjam here because the motion to dismiss is briefed. The class certification is briefed on our side, but the judge decided that he wanted to make a ruling on the motion to dismiss first before he requires the government to brief the class certification. And we're just waiting on that first decision so that it can go forward. Now, as Chuck always says, if he decides to dismiss the case, we have as many new plaintiffs as they want next week to refile. I mean, it's silly to make people litigate over and over again, but we can do it, and we can file this one with another motion for class certification. But it's not a good use of judicial resources. So I would expect that the judge would see that and not dismiss the case, but we shall see.
And we will be litigating that. We're litigating against with AILA, the American Immigration Lawyers Association, because we all believe that you shouldn't wait a year to get your EAD. I mean, that's just ridiculous. That's just absolutely ridiculous. All right, we've got the next thing. This is now boiling to a head, gentlemen. It's boiling to a head. It is quite clear that USCIS will not use all, 320,000 visas this year? Yeah. They're just not. They're not going to use the EB-5s. They're not going to use the EB-3s. And so I think what we'll probably put together, Greg, is probably do some outreach here. I was hoping we would have the second quarter numbers before we could file, but I'm not sure we're going to get those before June. Yeah. So, I mean, I think we can look at what they did in the first quarter. We know anecdotally from our own practices that there is not a giant flood of EAD of adjustments being approved for our clients. So we know they're not working on them because we have we're representative practices and we're part of groups that have the same issue that tell us they're not being adjudicated. So we will be posting something later this month. Does that sound fair, Greg?
Yeah, and I think the issue, I mean, we're looking at class at going the class route this time
Yeah.
to avoid the issue that happened last year.
Yeah, I think we'll have to do that. But obviously, if you're a plaintiff in the class, you do get treated first. So you'll definitely want to be a plaintiff. Next is the, Greg, an issue near and dear to your heart. This is the visa fee litigation.
Yeah, so we had put this a bit on the back burner while we were doing with DV2022 and the EB5 cases, but it is reemerging. And to refresh people as far as what that case is about, is there were basically two different parts to it. One is that people who paid visa fees and never got the actual appointments or had appointments canceled, never got refunds. Students who were paying CVIS fees and never were able to get visa appointments, basically seeking to get people refunded money that they paid for services that were never delivered. And then also there's another component to this involving overcharging by the Department of State for visa applications for multiple years. And that's another part of it. We're trying to seek to get the government held accountable for that.
So if you're interested in that, you just go to IMMPact Litigation and you will see the sign in there. I did want to mention, gentlemen, this issue. To alert you, I have FOIA'd 3 specific pieces of information from our friends at USAS because, Greg, Urchadu neglected to get asked this question. One of my attorney, Waleed, was at the conference and asked this question, and it became the #1 question from the audience to be asked for likes, and it was not asked, and that was, how many registrations did you receive for the fiscal year?
I wonder why they're not telling us.
No, they've never said how many they got.
They've said it in past years.
No, exactly. They've always said it right away in past years, but not this year.
Yeah, I wonder why.
That's question 1. Question 2 is, how many selectees were notified? How many registrants were selected and notified in the lottery? That's question 2. And then there's question 3, which is I didn't ask for who. I just said a number. How many duplicate applications were disqualified, either because of multiple applications from a single employer or multiple applications from multiple employers for the same individual? Because we know they did that. We have some information from our colleagues. So I have sent that in electronically to the USCIS. They have 20 days to respond. We'll see what they say.
And if they don't respond,
I'm going to sue. I'm going to file a lawsuit. These are 3 pieces of information that we all know.
That's that FOIA lawsuits is there's like no defense the government has in a lot of these cases. They really have, it's so ridiculous that they can take years a lot of times to respond. Where if anybody bothers to file a suit against them, they have no defense and have to fess up immediately.
So for our lottery folks now, Greg, your folks told me they got a just under 30% selected. We had 25% selected. Aaron, do you know what your numbers were for the lottery selection?
I don't. Zach would have those, but I don't have those handy.
Let's ask Zach for next week.
I think our numbers were pretty typical, Chuck.
Yeah, I think they're pretty typical, because last year it was 40% in the first round.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that, as one of our clients from our litigation said, that would mean that they got upwards of 480,000 applications. Because apparently there's math. I don't know what that is, but apparently there's math that works. All right, let's see. Is there anything else we want to talk about today before we go to the question? Oh, Greg, you probably want to tell us that nothing's happening.
Well, so America Competes Act, which has a lot of good stuff in it, particularly green card cap exemptions for STEM folks, startup visas, all kinds of good things in there. That is in conference. And what that means is the Senate passed a version and the House passed a version of that bill. The House has the version with the immigration stuff. The Senate doesn't. Most people are dismissing that bill and saying that there's like no chance anything's going to happen. The only intel that I've gotten that's kind of interesting is the fact that Zoe Lofgren has been appointed to the conference committee, and the main reason she would be appointed to the conference committee would be because of the immigration provisions, and she's the chair of the House Immigration Subcommittee. So I saw that as a good sign. I don't have any other intelligence as far as like whether what's happening on that. I did tell you my theory, which was that the Democrats have some bargain. If they were going to bargain over anything, it would probably be the Durbin-Grassley H-1B L1 bill, and potentially including that in there. And I'm guessing anything right now on Title 42 is probably in the discussions. So we'll see on that. If the Biden administration wants to cave on that, this might be the place where they do it. But I don't have any specific information on that. But I do. So that's one thing to keep an eye on. There is some reason. There is a very recent news regarding a new bipartisan effort in the Senate to move an immigration bill, but the strategy, it's a little bit different this time. What they're looking at is not new legislation. They're looking at any bills that are out there already that seem to have decent numbers of Republican co-sponsors would be part of that package. So I think that, and Senator Tillis from North Carolina and Senator Durbin are basically spearheading that effort. So there might be there are not a lot, but there's a few bipartisan bills that are out there, like Healthcare Workforce Resilience Act for doctors and nurses, and some of the high-skilled stuff that's out there. So I think that if you're going to do immigration legislation, that's probably the smart way to do it, is not to try and find Republicans to support these initiatives out there. Just find the stuff that Republicans already support and do. And my thing is always like, start with the small stuff in Congress. Just pass small bills, get used to passing immigration legislation again. Use executive authority as much as possible, and then hopefully one day you'll be able to do some of the bigger stuff when the makeup changes in Congress.
Wouldn't count on the Biden administration doing anything constructive on non-legislative side, per that article about Ron Klain and Susan Rice.
Oh yeah, the big Oval Office arguments that.
Yeah, that was, and of course we knew that was happening, because if it wasn't happening,
all the good people have quit.
Yeah, look who quit. Esther, these people are serious immigration people. They just walked away.
Yeah.
These people don't walk away if they think they can fix something. They just walked away. And our very dear friend from the House Judiciary Counsel's office is now at the White House. I don't know whether to send her, lilies to mourn with her, or sunflowers to celebrate.
All I have to say is that the same thing was going on in the Obama administration, and then he implemented DACA and won the 2012 election. That should be a lesson to the Biden administration. When you lean in on immigration, it pays dividends. When you try and mimic the Republicans, nothing good happens.
You can say that till you're blue in the face, but Ron Klain is not listening. He's not following me on Twitter, so he doesn't hear me. Any news in the lottery? Yes, Vince. We did talk about that. His follow-up question: second chance? Of course, there's
virtual luck.
There's 100% chance there's going to be a second lottery. Vince, should be based on your passport number. I have no idea what that means, Vince.
I know what that means. That means that's one per customer. That's what we like.
Well, that's true. That I thought you were. Every country has different numbers. You know that, right? Now I get.
Right. IN dash whatever, on there. But I like that idea.
So why have 2 NLs, which we concluded last week, were the KCC or NVC sending, hey, your case is complete, ready for interview? I don't have any idea. Well, first of all, it's only April 12th. Second, they're on the orders from Judge Mehta to finish the system. Maybe that's what they're working on. I don't know.
I see.
Oh, they were supposed to be done this month.
He gave them more time.
I see Britt Simon has comments lower saying his theory is that they want to slow walk 2020 and make it all about the appeals and Gomez to stop reservation.
That's a good game. Make it all about the appeals and Gomez stop Gomez.
Slow walk 20. I don't know, but they certainly are slow walking it. They certainly don't care. That's what I tried to ask during the open forum of Neil Vermillion of the Department of State.
No way. Neil showed up.
Nothing about the National Visa Center.
Yeah, I asked it.
His response.
My question was, why aren't we, processing DV visas when other categories are back to pre-pandemic levels? But it didn't get asked.
That's the problem with ALA. The important questions don't get asked. They're afraid to offend their people and not have, because we haven't had access for 4 years at the level that we've had this last year, and they're afraid they're going to make somebody. It's like, hey, don't help the Ukrainians because the Russians will throw a nuclear weapon. Who cares? We have more and better weapons.
It's like access journalism.
So that's what I think. 29 Super C. Can you advise on going about your green card in the mail instead of other than the employer office? I don't necessarily understand that question. Are you asking?
Oh, I see. So somebody who's working remotely, whether they can file it based on where they're working versus where the employer. It's an interesting.
The Department of Labor talked about that in the open forum on Friday as well, and they said you can do it where you work. If you have only remote offices, if there's no central office, you can do that in the state the individual works, but you still have to post the notice somewhere. You have to figure that out. But if you're I will tell you what we do. If we have remote employees, we do everybody from the central office.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just easier. But if your central office is San Francisco and you're working in Iowa, my guess is your employer is going to want to do it in Iowa, is my guess. So I don't think it makes any difference in the long run other than through the wage. Okay. The update, somebody wants an update on DV 2020. Look, there's not going to be any DV 2020 visa issuance in fiscal year 2022. There's not, because there's no way we have a decision from the Court of Appeals before the end of September 2022. There's zero. Aaron, am I right?
You're correct.
It's zero chance. So
unless the government settles.
Oh, you are such an optimist, man. I love that guy. Let's see. Britt is inviting DV winners to stay stay in his Airbnb RV.
I thought he was inviting us
for 60 days. Maybe it's us.
No, it was when you were telling people to come in on vacation.
Okay. On Go, with just like Acker and Gomez, again, there's not going to be any decision. There's no visas being issued until, on my guess, the fall, if we win, which I think we will, the fall of 2022. Just, go on with your life. Just, we're fighting as that process goes. The government has filed their brief in the case. Our brief, Darren, is due May.
We have something due the 21st of April.
Yeah. And it's one brief from all the parties.
Frankenstein.
It's going to be terrible. And you know what it's going to be like? It's going to be like a Supreme Court decision where Justice so-and-so concurs in part 1, but has not joined part 2 and 4. That's what it's going to be like, so. All right. Go Ukraine. We get humanitarian parole. Can apply for AOS. Humanitarian parole is not a status that you can adjust.
But I think if you're paroled in, that gets back into it's
if you're married to a citizen, you can adjust, but not
admission. You can't adjust off of a parole.
It's not status under 245A. It's not status, so they can't adjust. And by the way, all of our friends,
you might be able to consular process like in Vancouver or something.
Oh no, I think. Well, I wouldn't count on. Well, Canada only Montreal does IVs, so
that's true.
But I actually reached out for one of our clients to Barbados.
Yeah,
I think it's Barbados. For guys, and they said no, they won't do it.
They're considered stateless at this point, so that means that any consulate that will take and that is willing to is allowed to.
Right. Barbados said no. Although I can't imagine they're overwhelmed in Barbados. But there may only be 2 consular officers, for all I know, in Barbados.
I did learn that that there are 300 Ukrainians a day that are getting humanitarian port parole.
Oh, on Friday there were 780.
Wow.
Now, this is, by the way, they're all coming into Tijuana.
Yeah.
That's the same port of entry that couldn't process 30 asylum seekers a day under the Trump administration.
Yeah. I mean, I've been nervous about telling people to go there, but it seems like those are the only people that
The
are
Biden administration wants them to do, because it saves the Biden administration from having to do anything that resembles good faith. And say, hey, where's my, because, we all talk about it. Maybe we didn't. You guys weren't here. It was Lily and I. What is the chance that we get 100,000 Ukrainian refugees? There's 0% chance that that's going to happen.
Well, they could do it. They could get that number if they do it, basically through
paroles. So, and then maybe you grant them all refugee status. If they're all smart enough to file for asylum, grant them all humanitarian asylum. Boom, there you got it. Same result as refugees. I mean, I have told clients, look, if you want to apply for asylum, your best bet is to go to Mexico and then go up to the port of entry. And if their current policy is Russians don't get in, they're still being,
I've got
42, but not Ukrainians.
I have some very interesting Russian matters coming up.
One thing is interesting. Have you heard any Republicans complaining about Biden letting in Ukrainians at the border?
Well, they seem to not have a problem with Title 42 not applying to those folks.
Interesting.
I wonder what the difference could be.
I don't know. I don't know what that could be. And the thing is, who are the Russians that are seeking entry? The ones that are opposed to Putin. Right. Putin actually I saw something come out in Russia that he's begging IT guys not to leave.
Yeah, Russians have wonderful asylum claims.
I think they have great asylum claims at this point. Is there an exception for immigrant visa interviews if I hope not expired? Again, if you have a non-immigrant visa with which to enter the United States, and you are here for more than 60 days and you change your mind, you can then file an adjustment of status. It's a statement of fact.
Well, your intention could be to come in on that non-immigrant status, keep your immigrant processing going on, and your intention is to process at the consulate, assuming that they're moving your case along. If they are not moving your case along after 60 days, that's a very legitimate reason to change your views on it.
True, but this is a DV2021 case, so they're not.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I did not see that. Yeah. Thank you, Aaron. You could catch. No, there is no adjustment of status processing for Go plaintiffs.
Right. No, that's right. You're right. We missed that critical.
Yeah, I missed that critical part. They had a follow-up question though. What about kids who age out? Our position is those kids are still covered because they've started the immigrant visa process before they turn 21. So we believe they're still covered when we're successful. Any options to get a green card while humanitarian parole? If you fell in love with a devilishly handsome.
No, I mean, look, the Ukrainians, I had this discussion yesterday. There's a new AILA Ukraine interest group.
Yes, there is.
A big Zoom call on there. And we talked about the fact that the Ukrainian government is unable to control the Russian army and the massive human rights violations that are happening in that country. And it's based on nationality, national origin, and you might be able to make it. I was very skeptical about being able to make an asylum claim for Ukrainian early on because there's not any persecution per se that's happening by the Ukrainian government, but being a government that's unable to control other actors, that's a basis for asylum itself, even if you're not being persecuted by the government.
I agree, and having done hundreds of asylum cases, I think it's legitimate. Also, keep in mind if you're lawfully in the United States on humanitarian parole, you are not accruing unlawful presence. That means a U.S. employer can sponsor you for a green card in the EB3 category, for which there is currently no backlog. Now, if I do recall correctly, they did indicate that EB3 may backlog this year, maybe for worldwide. I don't know if that's going to happen, but even if it backlogs, it's not going to backlog for years. It'll backlog for a short period of time. So a U.S. employer, and then you would have to consular process, just like you would if for any other reason other than marriage to a U.S. citizen. So that there are options.
My guess is as well as parole is going to be extended like TPS is extended.
I think what they're going to have to do is update the TPS date frankly, that should have been I mean, I was so ticked, as you know, very ticked off initially when they came out with the date 2 days before they announced it.
Always the least they can do.
The least, the very
There's
least.
a common theme with this administration. It's like, what is the least we can do to solve a problem?
They're just so terrified of Republicans. I mean, really.
But the Republicans were calling for it too.
Just get over it. No Manila updates, CB man. Sorry about that. We got nothing right now. EAD lawsuit. We updated that early on, Sadesh. Mary, is there any other options? Oh, we already talked about that, Mary.
Yeah.
See above. Stig's lorry driving cousin. When is the last chance to ask judge of consideration to be lottery? That case is gone. All right. So because the lottery we were fighting is gone. If we see the abuse, they get my FOIA back. That means we can't refile the case with more evidence with the judge, but the old case is over. Okay. So I kind of talked about that earlier. Hey, Lily is watching us. Hello, Lily. Just referring to a green card is delivered. The options. Oh yeah. Well, the green. I bet you guys. Somebody in my office came in today and said, my green card didn't get to my house. I said, why is your green card being sent to your house? Why isn't it being sent here? Because that's generally policy. Why? I didn't know if I could get my green card from you guys, so I had to send it to my house. And now it's lost. So we have them sent to a P.O. box that we control. I don't know what you guys do on cards and stuff like that, but for local clients, we think that's important.
Where there's a delivery problem, it turns into a nightmare.
It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare.
A lot of law firms do the P.O. boxes just because of the law firm moves offices and all that. The P.O. box is sort of a permanent one that never changes.
There you go. He is in Iowa. Was that the craziest guess in the world? But his main office is Louisiana, which is probably even cheaper. So I don't think it really matters there. Let's see. Oh, CB man, we are working on following up with our clients to a joint status report with the government and set a schedule. So Lily always knows the answer to these questions.
Thank you, Lily.
Lily's like answering the questions live on here. Let's see. Final question, Lily. I'm asking about AOS for Go. There is no AOS for Go. Sorry.
We don't know this for sure, but I don't anticipate that there will be, even if the decision goes our way. Now, could USCIS and Department of State get together and make it available? Sure, in theory. But USCIS is not a defendant in that case or any of the other cases, as far as I'm aware.
Because they always process the visas.
Yeah, so I don't think that you can read the order to apply to them.
I agree. All right, gentlemen, thank you everybody for watching today. We'll be back next Tuesday at noon. Who is on tomorrow? I'm on tomorrow at 5.
I'm catching up on stuff, so I'm not on today.
We're on Thursday.
Thursday at noon Central. Noon Central. Awesome, everybody. We'll see you next week.